Hey everybody, it's me Lone, hope you're all going well, and let's finally talk about Starfield. Starfield, of course, was a game that I mentioned in my announcement video that I'd really like to cover heavily on my channel moving forward, for obvious reasons, so why not start today? Unfortunately, there's not a lot of new information going around for Starfield, so what I thought we could do is just have a general high-level discussion about the success of Starfield, or more to the point, the potential success of Starfield. Is it going to be successful? What happens if it isn't successful? And all that kind of stuff. So if you enjoyed this video, please like it. I would really appreciate it. Subscribe if you're new. Please consider supporting me on either Patreon or memberships. The links are in the description below. But with that out of the way, let's get to the topic. Alrighty, so for this discussion, I'd like to split it off into two different areas. Number one, I want to talk about my general thoughts about whether I think Starfield is actually going to be a success or not. And then two, I want to talk about the hypothetical, namely, if Starfield is not successful, what that actually means for Starfield as a franchise and also Bethesda as a whole. So that's how we're going to be chatting about this topic. And as always, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. So when it comes to whether I think Starfield's going to be successful, I'm very much leaning towards the side of, yes, I think this game is going to be a big hit. Now, whether or not it reaches a level of Fallout 4 or Skyrim, who really knows? I think that really depends. And it is a new IP. This is the thing that I need to keep coming back to. Starfield is a new IP. It is untested. However, I do think, especially after games like Mass Effect Andromeda, people in the industry and gamers are kind of looking for that space game that really hits all the marks and that is just fun to play for hours and hours and hours, and that doesn't have any, big controversies at launch like Andromeda did, right? So I definitely think there is space just because of the theme of Starfield and the setting and the type of game that it is. I definitely think the industry is ripe for that game to succeed. It just matters, whether Bethesda is actually able to execute on that game and able to do it successfully. But I think that they will. And I think so because you can say a lot of things about Bethesda Game Studios, but when it comes to my opinion, I think they're an amazing developer. I think they're the top of their class when it comes to creating games that are just fun to play, that are immersive, that you just want to explore in for hours upon hours. I think they make incredible games. I had a big discussion on Twitter about bugs and when it comes to their games, and that's, obviously part of the discussion, but I don't think it's the whole picture. I think when it comes to Bethesda just creating games that are fun and that are incredible and that you're going to enjoy, especially open world single player RPG games, as you know, I think they're amazing at what they do. So just for that reason in and of itself, I do think Starfield is going to be a success. I think the more the question is, how much of a success is it going to be and how do you judge that? I can't say whether this game is ever going to reach the levels of Elder Scrolls or even Fallout. I think it might get close, but it does need some time to develop. As I said, it's a new IP, and this is going to be the first game. And, it needs to bring in that audience, convince everyone as to why it is actually a good game, and then go on from there. And then do we see a Starfield 2 or a Starfield 3? I think it is dependent upon how well that first game goes. But at the very least, when you listen to Todd and when you listen to the team talk about this game and how this is something that they've wanted to do for a very long time, you can hear how passionate they are about that game. And also as well, this isn't me going off of my opinion, but I think there is a bit of fatigue within that team about, working on Fallout and working on Elder Scrolls. They've worked on Fallout and Elder Scrolls games for a very, very, very long time. I think for their sake, they really wanted to do something different, and that's why Starfield is the next big game that we're getting from them. So even just for that reason in and of itself, I think that they are refreshed. I think that they have, the motivation again to create a game that just wows everybody. So I do really think that it is going to be a success just for that reason. But of course, we need to consider now that they have Microsoft backing them, right? And this game is going to be on Game Pass, so there's going to be so many people that just try this game because they can, whether you're on Xbox Game Pass on the console or on PC. I think everyone's just going to try this game, and they'll be able to determine whether they like it or not. I guess what I'm saying, the barrier to entry to trying Starfield as a new IP is going to be much lower because of Game Pass, right? And again, you're going to have Microsoft wanting to push the crap out of this game because now they're part of the family. They want to make sure that everyone plays Starfield. I think Phil Spencer, I'm about to say Pete Hines, Phil Spencer said recently that he wants Starfield to be the most played Bethesda game of all time. If he says that, I think he's going to do everything in his damn power to do so. So whether it actually hits that level or not, again, who really knows? And it's a really hard comparison to have. Back in the day with Skyrim and Fallout 4, those were games that, you paid full price for the most part, and that you would play. Whereas now when you have Game Pass in the equation, like, you probably have more people playing it, but would you have more people finishing it? Like, what's the ratio and how does that actually split? It's going to be hard to say. Like, take an example. This is an extreme example. Let's say it's a free-to-play game. More people are able to play free-to-play games, right? Because they can just download it easy and just play. But does that mean it's as much of a success as a game that doesn't have as many people downloading it, because it does require a cost of some kind, but more people stick with it? Maybe it makes more money internally. There's a lot of things, like, you can't just compare apples with oranges right now in terms of that, but just generally at a high level, I do think this game is going to be a success. I think, if anything, this game, I'm not going to say that it can't fail, because I don't think like Bethesda's going to be fine, and we're going to talk about that in a second, but I think a lot is riding on this game, just in terms of people's perceptions about Bethesda, and, you know, whether they actually want to play a Bethesda Game Studios game in the future after 76, and we'll touch on that. But just for that reason, I think there's a lot riding on this game, and I think Bethesda is not going to drop the ball. I think there's a lot of pressure in that regard, and I think they're gonna pull it off. So we'll see what happens, and I'm happy to sit here and stand corrected if the game doesn't succeed. It's going to be hard for us to determine that when we don't have real numbers or anything like that, but let's see what happens. But that is my personal opinion, and again, I'd love to get your thoughts. But now let's talk about the hypothetical about, you know, whether if Starfield doesn't actually perform, if it doesn't, you know, resonate with gamers, as I said, if it doesn't hit any targets that Bethesda might have internally, what does that actually mean? And I think there are two different bits to this, right? Let's say monetarily, if Starfield does not perform well in terms of money and revenue, and it just doesn't hit those targets, you know as full well as I do, and if you don't, you should, Bethesda is going to be fine. There are too many smart people working in that company for them just to suddenly crumble after the failure of one game, right? As a hypothetical. They're not just going to go out of business or, you know, just worry so much. Like, they're going to be fine, especially as they're part of Microsoft now. They have that backing. They literally got acquired for $7 billion. Like, if Starfield was a complete failure monetarily, they're going to be absolutely fine. They're going to keep doing their thing. People are going to keep buying Skyrim and all their old IP. They have a strong catalog, such a strong catalog of old IP that are keep being sold, that people keep buying. There are sales all the time. You can see them, whether it's for QuakeCon or E3, the Game Awards, whatever it might be. They're running sales all the time. Like, their catalog of IP is so strong that even if Starfield fails, they're going to be fine. Now, mind you, if the game after that and the game after that starts to fail, then yeah, that's a pattern. But still, I think they're going to be fine. But I think it's a more interesting question when you ask whether, in the eyes of the community, in the eyes of gamers generally, whether Bethesda is going to be able to kind of recover after Starfield being a failure, if it is, again, hypothetically. In other words, like, because a lot of people were burnt by Fallout 76. I know that, you know that. It was a very rough launch, right? And even to some extent, Fallout 4, it's a very divisive game. Again, especially, and I mentioned this in the other video last week, especially with the voice protagonist and a few of the changes that they made. I think at that stage, people were starting to think, oh yeah, like, maybe it's not quite my game. I really liked Fallout 3 and I really liked Skyrim, but I didn't like a lot of these changes. And then again, you add Fallout 76, burning people at launch, and a lot of them never coming back. I think there is a decent part of the games industry, you know, broadly, and a part of that community that might see Starfield as a make or break it game for them personally, right? If they give Starfield a go and they don't like it, is that going to fundamentally change their perceptions of Bethesda Game Studios games moving forward? Are they going to become less of a fan? Are they going to be less likely to buy and try their games moving forward? I think with some people, that is a legitimate risk. I think some people are kind of on the precipice in terms of whether they want to start really supporting BGS games again and defending them and all that kind of stuff, or backing away from that a little bit. I think there are some people that are just solely, like, they don't like Bethesda and call them haters. Like, I don't like that word, but there are some people that I don't think would ever come back to Bethesda after games like 76, and that's fine. That's their opinion. Though I do think a lot of people that have said that in the past are going to try Starfield. I think if you've ever tried a Bethesda Game Studios game in the past and you had any kind of enjoyment, I think there is a good chance you are going to try Starfield. I know the memories of gamers are long, and I know 76 had its issues, of course, but I think when Starfield comes out later this year, and even if there's a few good reviews, you're probably going to try it. Especially if you have Game Pass, you're probably going to try it. So I think there's going to be a lot of people out there that give this game a go. But if it does fail, maybe in the eyes of some of those gamers that it might be hard for them to kind of, I guess, trust Bethesda again and to keep trying their games again and to keep being a bigger of a fan as they maybe used to be in the past. But I don't think that that's going to be the scenario. I really do believe that Starfield is going to be a great game. I have a lot of faith in Bethesda on this one. I think they made a lot of mistakes with 76, but they have learnt from them, okay? And that was I keep mentioning 76, but it really was a unique case. That game was not a Fallout 4 or a Skyrim or a Fallout 3, right? Just with how it was developed and what they were trying to do, and the team that actually did and also still does the bulk of the development today. It's not actually that core BGS studio. They absolutely worked on the game, don't get me wrong, but it was just a completely different development of that game compared to those other big games. I think if anyone is kind of worried about Bethesda Game Studios or kind of wanted to determine whether they are a dev that makes games for them, I think Starfield is going to be the big test, okay? If Starfield comes out and it's not a good game, I'll stay in here corrected, and those people can kind of be vindicated in their opinions of Bethesda Game Studios, whatever opinion you might have now. But I genuinely do think it's going to convince people that BGS is still an incredible developer. I still have that belief. I think a lot of people have that belief. And yeah, I have a lot of hope for Starfield. I think it's going to be an incredible game. I can't wait till we see more of it at E3. But again, as always, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And we're going to get to the conclusion of this video right now. Alrighty, Wastelanders, that is all from me. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And until next time, this has been Lone. Please take care of yourselves. And would you kindly keep fighting the good fight.